Funnily enough, I have also screamed death to Israel. I went to school in Iran for 12 years. And for the first few years, I didn't even know Israel was a country. I didn't know what I was shouting death to. And that says a lot about Islamism using children as weapons, grooming them from when they are young and creating weapons out of children. Why would I not support Israel? Why would I not support the only Jewish state in the world? Why would I not support the only democratic country in the Middle East, the same Middle East that I grew up in, the same democracy that people in Israel have? I wish I had that in Iran. I wish I had that democracy.
Today, I'm joined by Kamyar Fayez, a Persian Christian commentator based in the UK, who speaks openly about Iran, Israel, radical Islamism, and the future of the Iranian people. Kamyar is a strong supporter of a free Iran and Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, and he's been an outspoken supporter of Israel and the Jewish community. He's confronted anti-Israel demonstrators in Britain and argues that the historic bond between Persians and Jews could be restored in a free Iran. Kamyar, welcome.
Thank you for having me. First and foremost, I just want to say, greetings to the people of Israel, greetings to the people of Iran. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. And you pretty much summed up what I do. And it's almost so spontaneous for me to do what I do, considering I wasn't even a political person up until this year, January. But, sometimes certain events happening in your life where, you start journeys where you wasn't planning on going on them. But it's good to be here. I know I'm standing on the right side of history. And as you said, my end goal is for the bond between the Persians and the Jews is to go back to how it was. I want the Iranians to represent, our true values, the values of Cyrus the Great that freed the Jews. And, I think the Israelis have paid that debt they've paid a great price for it by, killing Khamenei and still up to this day standing with the people of Iran.
Exactly. Now, Kamyar, you've said that governments are not the same as their people. When the Islamic Republic chants death to Israel, how much does that actually represent the Iranian people?
It's a very small percentage, but unfortunately, it's making a lot of noise. And that's because the Iranian government controls everything in Iran. But, there's been videos from, the uprising in January where people are naming streets after Netanyahu. They're calling him Bibi Jun. They're calling him Dear Bibi, and they're naming streets after him. And, the young generation is so, educated. They love the people of Israel. They know the people of Israel is not they're not the enemy of the people of Iran. And unfortunately, the Islamic regime propaganda is so strong and, backed by, many countries in Europe. And that's why you see the negative side of things. Funnily enough, I have also screamed death to Israel. I went to school in Iran for 12 years. And for the first few years, I didn't even know Israel was a country. I didn't know what I was shouting death to. And, that says a lot about, Islamism using children as weapons, grooming them from when they are young and creating weapons out of children.
Exactly. So you mentioned you went to school there. Maybe you can speak a little bit about your upbringing in Iran, what it was like for you back then.
I mean, it was terrifying, and I'm so grateful, and I am so lucky to have, made it out of Iran. But literally everything in Iran is controlled by radical Islam. In school, I couldn't have my hair a certain way because it was haram. I couldn't do this because it was haram. I couldn't do that because it was haram. It was just constant control, constant abuse, constant grooming into, Islamic jihad, shouting death to Israel, death to West, death to Christians, death to the Jews. It wasn't a very pleasant, upbringing. And I'm not sure how it is now. I'm guessing it's only gotten worse, but it wasn't nice, and I experienced, the uprising during the, I don't know what year it was. In Iran, we said 88. I'm not sure what the year was, but I seen uprisings where, people in the streets were getting shot. My own dad used to, take part in those protests. And when he used to come back home, you could just tell from the look on his face that, It was bad. It was really bad. Everything in Iran is controlled by the Islamic regime. Everything in Iran is controlled by radical Islam. And I really feel sorry for children in Iran, even the ones who are groomed into, the radical Islamic mindset. It's really bad.
At what point did you leave Iran? How old were you? And what was it like transitioning to life in the UK?
Yeah. So I was 12 and the transition was really hard because, regardless of how bad it was, everything I had was in Iran. Everything I knew was in Iran. I couldn't speak English. I knew nothing about any life outside of Iran. The transition almost broke me. It was even tougher, from the age of 12 up until 16, 17, 18. It was even harder than being in Iran because it's almost like I had a factory reset and I had to, adjust, integrate, assimilate, which I did. And, it did nearly break me in the process. But I guess it's made me to the person I am today. So I can't complain.
Now, you've been very public about supporting Israel, supporting a free Iran. Why are you willing to take that position when the backlash it can bring? Have you ever feared for your safety? Maybe take us into that.
I'm not sure if you know, but I am actually from Birmingham. So I don't know if that rings a bell with what happened with the Tel Aviv fans, because unfortunately, Birmingham can be a very radical Islamic city. And there is a lot of radical Muslims here who don't even know where Israel is. They don't even know what a Zionist is. And they are really willing to, take it there. But, I am a descendant of Cyrus the Great. I fear no man. I fear nobody but God himself. And I am willing to die for the truth, stand for the truth, and fight for the truth. So in terms of fearing for my life, at times, does it make me anxious? Yes, I would be lying if I say it doesn't, because it can be a very scary thing, being almost at war with radical people who are not willing to even think, even talk, have peace. They don't want peace. But again, I am the son of Cyrus the Great. My ancestors fought wars to end slavery and, stand on the right side of history. So I will never, ever fear nobody but God himself. And I am willing to, stand for the truth. And Israel, if you was to ask me why I even support Israel, I'm going to answer that with a question. Why would I not support Israel? Why would I not support the only Jewish state in the world? Why would I not support the only democratic country in the Middle East, the same Middle East that I grew up in, the same democracy that people in Israel have, the people of Israel have? I wish I had that in Iran. I wish I had that democracy. I wish I had the joys of growing up in a diverse country where you had the Jews, you had the Muslims, you had the Jews, you had everyone getting along and, having the same constitutional rights. And I've seen a lot of anti-Semitism in the UK. I have seen the rise of radical Islam. And I know one of the biggest enemies of radical Islam is Israel. And I love the Middle East. And I know if it wasn't for Israel, the Middle East would have already turned to a shithole. It would have been in a state just infested with radical jihad, radical Islam. And thank God for Israel. Thank God for the IDF that, they are keeping the Middle East a little bit in check.
Do you think the Western media makes a mistake when it does Iran and the Islamic Republic? It uses those words interchangeably when we know that there's such a big difference between them.
Yeah, the Islamic regime of Iran and Iran, they have got nothing to do with each other at all. Majority of Persians, even now in Iran, are not Muslim. I can say this with confidence that less than 50% of the people in Iran practice Islam. Even going back, way before that, before we were invaded by the Arabs, we were Zoroastrians. We had nothing to do with Islam. Islam never belonged in our country as a regime or a government. And there is a massive difference between, the true heritage and the culture of the people of Iran than a radical Islamic regime that's only been around for 48 years. Literally, my dad is older than, this Islamic regime. They have got nothing to do in Iran, a country that's, it's based around human rights. We introduced human rights to the world. Before the Islamic Revolution, I can say with confidence that Iran was basically, I don't know how to say this, but it wasn't a third world country. Iran was almost, one of the greatest capitals of the world. We had freedom. We had a secular, free Iran under the Pahlavi. And that's what we want. You know, we just literally want a secular, free Iran. Me, myself, I am a monarchist. I would love to have a constitutional monarchy under Reza Pahlavi. I would love that. And I know a lot of people would oppose that, and I respect that, as long as they stand against the Islamic regime and they have a legitimate solution, a true regime change.
Now, after everything we've seen, is the regime weaker today than most outsiders realize? And what is actually keeping this regime alive?
100%. The regime right now in 2026, the Islamic regime is the weakest it has ever been. We have never seen the regime so, you know, they are, you know, that literally just a push. We just need Bibi. We not at this point, we're not even relying on America. We're just relying on, you know, Israel to finish them, because, you know, America has been throwing a lot of rockets, and, you know, I can't even call it a war until Israel is involved. It's just a show. But when Israel attacks, they avoid civilians. They kill the leaders that are responsible for the death of thousands, if not millions, of Iranians. And I am sure, and this is my personal opinion, but I think Iran right now is being controlled from outside of Iran. There is an external, power in play, which is keeping them in power. They need, like, you know, in the past 4 or 5 months, majority of the most important people in that regime were murdered, but somehow the regime is still standing. That cannot be just the Islamic regime by itself. And, you know, I haven't figured it out, you know, thoroughly yet, of who is actually, trying so hard for the regime to stay. It could, you know, it's a crazy conspiracy theory, but for all I know, it could be America. But when it comes to Israel, it's completely different. It's out of the equation. I hate when people try to speak to me like I'm naive and say, you know, they love their lunatic conspiracies, but they say it's just a greater Israel. They want to take over. No, the Persians and the Jews have a biblical relationships, and that's what separates, you know, that foreign intervention from Israel than America. America has always been a country that have been responsible for a lot of things in the Middle East, a lot of things that shouldn't have happened, but I could never put them in the same caliber as Israel. The regime is really weak. They are scared of the people more than they are scared of America or Israel. The people in Iran during January, they took every city in Iran in hours with empty hands until the regime started to bring machine guns and, you know, foreign militias from Iraq, Lebanon, from, you know, all these countries to kill the people of Iran. The regime is the weakest it has ever been. And I can say, you know, with confidence, latest in a year, the regime will be gone.
Yeah. Now, you think decades of this religious rule actually made these younger Iranians more secular? They're more rebellious, because we see a lot of the people that are protesting in the streets are the younger generation.
100%. 100%. I mean, the Islamic regime of Iran has been oppressing the people of Iran for the past 48 years, but they've been creating an army of people like me, of the new generation. They have acknowledged they are the true enemy. You know, young people like me in Iran are even more reckless. They went to the streets knowing they could get shot, they could get killed. You know, the Iranian women, you know, women my age, they are so brave because they went to the streets knowing if they get arrested, they will be victims of sexual assault, they will be raped, they will be killed, but they still did it because they have nothing to fear. The new generation of Iran will take Iran back from this brutal, evil Islamic regime that's been doing nothing but, you know, tarnishing the culture of Iranians, tarnishing the heritage of Iranians. They are trying to literally, I would say with confidence, the real genocide is happening in Iran, where in Iran, we are not allowed to practice majority of our culture because it's haram. Says who? And that's what the young people in Iran have woken up to. They are aware of what's going on, and they know if they don't do something now, God forbid, it could actually be too late.
Yeah. Now, we saw tens of thousands of protesters that were slaughtered. Most people don't know that there are still people being hanged daily. Now, why doesn't the persecution of these Iranian protesters receive the same level of attention in the West as other global causes like Gaza and Palestine?
Because it's not Israel. You know, at times I've literally thought about this. I wish Israel was the actual enemy of Iran instead of the Islamic regime. Because if Israel was the enemy of Iran, maybe the world would actually hear us. Maybe the world would realize in Iran, after the sound of Islamic prayers, they are executing innocent protesters. Some of these people are 14, 15. They did nothing but want freedom. They went to the streets. They were peaceful until the regime started killing people. And now, after the sound of Islamic prayers, they are being butchered and killed and executed. And somehow the world has got nothing to say because it's not Israel. But God forbid a kid has a nosebleed in Gaza. It gets all the global outrage. It's ridiculous. It's ludicrous. It is ludicrous. And trust me, if the world keeps closing their eyes on what's happening in Iran, they will be the victim of radical Islam. They will experience it. I mean, we are seeing it in the UK. The rise of radical Islam in the UK has, increased rapidly. And I can see this, it might just be a conspiracy theory and a laugh and jokes for now, but I can see, a time and day where there will be radical Sharia law in the streets of Britain, where, there will be no British law, there will be Sharia courts, and they will deal with the law according to the Sharia and radical Islam. And, every single country that closed their eyes on the massacre in Iran, every single country that is still being silent about the executions in Iran will at some point pay the price. 100%, I am certain on that.
Exactly. And just to add to that, we see tens of thousands slaughtered in Sudan and Nigeria, Christians by Muslims. And again, you don't hear much about that at all. So just to add to what you're saying.
100%, it's because it's the Muslims doing the killing. You want to call it radical Islam or Muslims. Sometimes, at times I think maybe they are, it sounds so crazy saying this, but maybe they are the true Muslims. Because if you are to actually read the Quran, like me, I have literally grew up reading the Quran, and some of the teachings and some of the things I was taught as a kid, maybe they are actually, practicing the real Islam, and the world is so scared to call that out. Why? There are literally thousands of Christians in Nigeria being killed by radical Muslims, and no one wants to say anything. Why? Do you not want to offend Muslims? Because I'm not scared to offend anyone. If I am standing on the right side of history, I'm standing on truth, and that's the reason why. As long as it's Muslims kill Muslims, no one says anything. Muslims kill Christians, no one says anything. Muslims do an October 7th. No one says anything. It never happened. It was a conspiracy theory. It was a lie. But God forbid, even an atheist kills a Muslim. Why are we victimizing Muslims? It's 2026. We shouldn't be victimizing nobody. Not just because they are Muslims. Stop victimizing Muslims, because trust me, in 2026, based on facts, on what has happened in the world, they are the least victims of this world.
Now, you recently wrote that this Persian-Jewish story has been connected for more than 2,500 years. Why is that history so important to you? What does Cyrus the Great represent to you personally as a Persian?
Cyrus the Great to me represents strength, honor, doing, practically saying the quiet part out loud. Because what Cyrus the Great did at his time was, I can't even explain it. Introducing human rights to the world, freeing the Jews from the Babylonians at times when nobody wanted to do anything with ending slavery. But Cyrus the Great stood up. Cyrus the Great built one of the greatest empires in the world. And to me, that's the reason I live today, is to honor that heritage, honor Cyrus the Great, and continue his missions. And if Cyrus the Great was a Zionist, who am I to not be a Zionist? I am a Zionist because I am honoring my ancestors. And it's so ludicrous to me that the world is practically refusing to understand that, Iranians supporting Israel, Iranians believing in the concept of Zionism, it's us honoring our ancestors. It's us honoring our heritage. That's all it is. There is no 7K. There's no benefits. In fact, supporting Israel in the past 4 or 5 months has only nearly got me killed. And it's like, I've lost connections. People have stopped talking to me. I have definitely lost out on opportunities to make money simply because of the fact I support Israel. So I am standing on the right side of truth. I am honoring Cyrus the Great. I am honoring my heritage by standing by the people of Israel.
Exactly. Now, you've described Persians and Jews as having a biblical relationship. Now, how much damage has the Islamic Republic done to this relationship that predates the regime by thousands of years?
I mean, a lot of damage has been done to the relationships of the Jewish community and the people of Iran to a point, people don't even know. There was a times where we were friends. We were really close. But I don't think they have done enough damage, because I think all they have done is even, more people have, woke up to the fact that why are we enemies? Why is a child screaming death to Israel when they don't even know where Israel is? They don't even know Israel is a country. And everything they've done for the past 48 years has only helped us become stronger. The relationship between Jews and Iranians all around the world is such an important image of freedom and strength and, rebuilding a bond that was damaged. And if we can do that, it's so, I find that so spiritual, because it shows you anything is possible and there can be peace. There can be peace. Because if I was radicalized for 12 years to hate Jews, to hate the people of Israel, and I can bounce back from that, I can learn the truth, I can be educated, then, a bond between Muslims, Jews, Christians, and other people can be restored. We just need to get rid of, unfortunately, and I'll say it, the only radical ideology right now that is stopping the world from peace is radical Islam. That's all it is.
Now, could a free Iran become one of Israel's closest allies in the Middle East? And what could Israel contribute to rebuilding a free Iran? What could a free Iran offer Israel? What are your thoughts on that?
100%. I mean, the first step to that would be for Israel to finish the Islamic regime, because I know as long as the Islamic regime is alive in the Middle East, the Jews will never have peace. They won't have peace with Lebanon. They won't have peace with the Palestinians, because the Islamic regime is the biggest sugar daddy to these terrorist organizations. They are all funded by the Islamic regime. So by Israel getting rid of the Islamic regime in Iran, there will be a free democratic Iran where it is not led by lunatics, and they will recognize the people of Israel as one of the closest allies. As the Crown Prince himself said, we will make sure we reserve you one of the best spots for an embassy in Tehran. And, from there, it's history. We can build such a new Middle East where there will be peace between, Lebanon and Israel, Lebanon and Iran. There will be so much peace if Israel and the people of Iran reunite as two legitimate governments on the Reza Pahlavi. We can only make the world a better place. Only a better place.
Now, you mentioned you live in Birmingham, which is a very tough area to be a Zionist. You made a post on your Instagram with Palestinian flags behind you, and you responded with an Israeli flag. What happened that day, and what gives you the strength to stand up to this mob of pro-Palestine protesters?
I mean, that wasn't my first time, facing counter protesters that claim to be Iranians, but have more Palestinian flags than even the Islamic regime flag. And, standing up to these people is what I live for. It is what I'm here for. It is my mission from God to stand up to these people where they think they can only, bully the weak, bully people who are not as strong, to stand up for their values. But me, I quite enjoy it, to be honest. I enjoy it because I know I'm speaking the truth. I am standing for the truth. So, what can go wrong? And if something does go wrong and something gets physical, and then that's when they can find out what the descendants of Cyrus the Great are capable of. We can take it there.
Yeah. Now, what does "from the river to the sea" mean to you when you hear protesters chanting it? Do you believe everyone who uses that phrase understands what it really means?
I think from the river to the sea in 2026, to me, is the biggest meme and the biggest joke, and also the biggest disrespect to the Middle East. Because the majority of these people, they couldn't name which river, which sea. They don't know where Palestine is. They don't know where Gaza is. They don't know what's happened in the past 4 or 5 decades for it to get to where it is. They don't know the amount of efforts from the Jews to have peace with the Palestinians. They don't know any of these things, and the only thing they know is from river to the sea. I mean, literally see people from, you see gay people screaming from river to the sea. I'm like, yeah, keep screaming river to the sea. Go to river to the sea. You will get thrown off buildings. You will get thrown off buildings. Like, you don't know what you're saying. You got feminists screaming free Gaza from river to the sea. But then also, to me, it's the complete opposite of saying the Palestinians just want peace. Because to me, from river to the sea is practically you saying you want to kill all the Jews, the whole land must be Islamic, you want to colonize the land again, like they did to Iraq, like they did to Lebanon, like they did to Syria, like they did to Iran. That's all it means. They don't want peace. They don't want peace. I think screaming from river to the sea should literally be illegal anywhere in the world because it's the complete opposite of wanting peace in the Middle East.
Do you believe parts of this pro-Palestine movement in Britain have an anti-Semitism problem? And why do you think Israel has become such an emotionally charged issue in British politics?
Okay, interesting. I think Israel right now is the biggest distraction in Britain to distract the British people from what's actually happening in their country, which is literally an invasion by, other cultures, other people from different countries they are not coming to this country with the best interests, let's say. And, the Western media has done a great job at making Israel this demonic thing and this distraction that they are trying to distract people in Britain, from what's happening. Because as long as I remember, in Britain, it's not the Jews that are taking down the flags saying they hate the British flag, they hate the English flag. It's not the Zionists that have grooming gangs. It's not the Zionists screaming death to the West. Again, it's just a distraction used by the Western media, by the British media to distract people from what's happening. The people of Israel are the least of, they are the smallest problem to Britain. They're not having a problem at all. The Jewish community in the UK has never been a problem. They live peacefully. They don't want to take over, they don't even teach Judaism. They don't even teach Judaism to non-Jews at all. They keep themselves to themselves. They are peaceful people. Every time I've gone to, Jewish areas in London, Golders Green, it's been some of the best interactions I've had. And, like the Persians, the Jews have proved they can be a group of minorities where they integrate, they assimilate, they mind their own business, they work hard, they make money, they are successful. And again, for the British media to use Israel and the Jews to portray somehow Israel, a country that's thousands of miles away, is a problem to Britain, way before open borders, way before, the rise of radical Islam and, the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, to a point where Saudi says we're not sending students to the UK because they're getting radicalized. It's bad. But how come the world doesn't talk about that? But they talk about Israel so much is ridiculous.
Exactly. Do you find it strange seeing these Western activists who've never been to Iran embrace movements aligned with the Islamic Republic while Iranian dissidents are fighting against that regime?
I mean, there can be two things. Scenario number one, which, is true in most cases, it's money. They get paid. Bushra, she gets paid. She 100% gets paid. Like, she can't be serious. She can't be serious. I don't know how she can even call herself a Muslim. Because if she was a true Muslim, she would know even Sunni Muslims in Iran are prosecuted. But somehow she goes to Iran, gets paid by the regime. She thinks we are all idiots and we don't know what's going on. She goes and paints this perfect image of the Islamic regime, like they didn't kill over 50,000 protesters, like they didn't kill Neda Agha Sultan, like they didn't kill Mahsa Amini. And those are just two innocent girls out of thousands of women that were victims of the Islamic regime. Scenario number two, unfortunately, links back to Muslims because they will defend their ummah, they will defend their own community, and they defend their community at any cost. They will practically bloodwash the brutal crimes of the Islamic regime just because they are Muslims. But it doesn't make sense because they also call me out for being Islamophobic. And they say, oh, you've been Islamophobic. But then they also say, well, hang on. No, they're not one of us. They are confused between themselves. I'm not going to lie. And to me, even as a Christian, I would put humanity before religion. And that's what I always say. Actually, I say, I am a follower of Jesus before I say I'm a Christian, because Jesus believed in humanity. Jesus was humanity. But unfortunately, Muslims do not condemn their actions. They rather defend the Islamic regime of Iran for the reputation of the religion, rather than condemning the actions of the Islamic regime in Iran, saying clearly they are not Muslims, they are not one of us. But instead, no, they stand in front of us, they counter-protest us, they support the Islamic regime in Iran, knowing how much bad things they are doing in the name of their religion, but I won't say it out loud because God forbid it tarnishes the image of the religion.
Now, obviously, you come from a country that was transformed by an Islamic revolution. When you look at Britain today, do you see warning signs that concern you?
I mean, I woke up this morning seeing a preacher get arrested in the streets of Britain for speaking about Christianity. I mean, that itself should actually terrify you, because it could never be true if it was the other way around. Imagine Muslims weren't allowed to practice. Imagine if Muslims were not allowed to talk about Islam in their own country and they were to get arrested for that. The global outrage would be crazy. But in 2026, Christians are being prosecuted in the streets of Britain for speaking about Jesus Christ. If that is not a wake-up call, and if that's not a warning to the people of Britain to wake up, to notice what's going on, this is not, immigration. It's not diversity. It's not respect. It's not British values no more. It is blatantly the censorship of Christians. It is blatantly a replacement of white people in their own country. And no one wants to say anything because, it makes you racist. It makes you far right. We're not far right. We're just people who care about, Britain for being Britain. Because this country gave me safety. I don't want it to change. I don't want white people to be replaced, because those same white people gave me safety. Those same white people became my friends and my family. They never cared where I was from. They loved me for who I was. But God forbid, Muslims in the UK found out I was Christian and I was from Iran. You should have seen the amount of actual racism I would have faced from them. I love white people. I love their country. And that's why I am a patriot to this country, and I will fight alongside the patriots to keep this country how it is. We have no issues with diversity. We don't have issues with Muslims, as long as you don't want to shove your ideologies down our throats. And we can all live together in peace. But to a point where Christians are being censored in the UK, that is a wake-up call for everybody.
You have somebody like Tommy Robinson who's been warning about this stuff for years, and yet they call him far right. They label him far right. It's only now that his message is getting out that he actually was right about what he's saying. Where does this criticism come from in the UK that anybody who goes against the liberals, the media, the progressives in parliament, that is considered far right? Why is it like that?
I mean, starting with Tommy Robinson, I think he is one of the biggest blessings the UK can have, because we need more people like him, especially where Tommy started advocating, no one else was willing to say the truth. And, I can't even imagine what that man has gone through and what he's still going through now. And he stood up, he was speaking the truth, he knew exactly what was coming. I remember watching Tommy Robinson, late 2013, 14, and I could see it. I could see it, and I could also see why they are trying to demolish his reputation. I could see why the false accusations of him being a racist, of him being an extremist, far from the truth. That man is just as passionate about Britain than I am passionate about Iran. There is nothing that Tommy Robinson has done for Britain that I wouldn't do for Iran, and I would do for Britain as well, because he is firm on his values. He's firm on his, what he wants and where he stands. And he was trying to warn people. And as you said, no one was willing to listen to him. And, again, that's another unfortunately, another dirty technique used by, the British government and the British media to label anyone with an opinion a racist, especially if they are white. Because I guarantee I would never get the amount of backlash as Tommy Robinson if we was to literally repeat the same things, which we do. But then, what can they say to me? Like, I'm racist as well. I'm a white nationalist. I'm a white supremacist. No, I'm literally. I'm from a Middle Eastern country, and I agree with every single thing Tommy Robinson has said. Sometimes has he been close to the mark? Yes, but that's just life. The day and age we live in right now is not built for soft people. And if opinions offend you that much to a point you have to literally demonize somebody, you are part of the problem. You are 100% part of the problem. And, shout out to Tommy Robinson because, in the Kingdom on 16th of May, he recognized the people of Iran. He officially invited the people of Iran to march alongside, the British patriots. I mean, look how racist that man was. He invited Iranians at a rally that was supposedly so racist and it was full of white supremacists that you had thousands of Iranians marching alongside the British patriots. And it was such a beautiful day. And, our unity since then has only grew. And, I work closely with Tommy's team and we're going to do some great things together.
Amazing. Now, do you think Britain can confront Islamist extremism aggressively while at the same time protecting those Muslims that are peaceful from discrimination? Do you think that we've reached a point where maybe it's too late to turn back the clock over here?
Honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know. All I know, it's a very hard question. I think, there are millions, thousands of peaceful Muslims. My own grandmother was, the woman who raised me. She was a Muslim, God rest her soul, and she was the most beautiful human being I've ever known. And there are many more like her. And, they are unfortunately being the victims of radical Islam as well in the UK. Because it's going to come a time where British people are going to have enough. They are literally going to have enough. And, I truly believe the British government is almost creating this sense of racism and this, this heavy tension between Muslims and non-Muslims. Because radical Islam has so much power and influence in the UK, and the censorship on people who want to call out radical Islam is so strong that one day, I promise you, the same white man that love to mock, you don't want to piss off the white man. When a white man's angry, they got to remember that that's the same white man that literally they went to wars. The British Empire was one of the greatest empires. They went to battles, they won many battles, and they are warriors. And one day, that spirit is going to come back. And if the government doesn't want to do anything about, solving these issues, people will take matters to their own hands. Do we want that? Absolutely not. We want peace. We want peace. But unfortunately, the British government is only, giving ammunition, and they are adding fuel to this fire by not, applying the same energy to Muslims and non-Muslims. The amount of two-tier policing is pissing people off, such as myself, and I'm not even white.
Now, did you watch the Oxford Union debate on whether the West is right to be suspicious of Islam? And what was your reaction to that?
The statement itself is a joke to me. Why would it not be? Unfortunately, radical Islam has given the entire world way more than enough to be suspicious of the ideology itself. And trying to sugarcoat verses from the Quran, trying to use taqiyya is not going to work because, again, as somebody who is from an Islamic country, who grew up in an Islamic country, I have every reason to now be suspicious of the Islam that's been portrayed in the West because of what I've seen in Iran. You've got people blatantly screaming they want Sharia for the UK. And you are really going to go to a debate and say, should people be suspicious of Islam? Yes, 100% yes. And, they absolutely played themselves in that debate because how did she really stood up and said, if it wasn't for She practically said, you need to thank us for protecting you from us. Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I forgot to say thank you that you're not killing me under, under your radical Islam. They made a fool out of themselves. And that guy, I'm pretty sure is a revert. Go to Iran. Like, if you love Islam so much, and I'm pretty sure he's white, he's British, wherever he's from. I know he's not from an Islamic country. Go to Iran. If you love Islam so much, go to Iran and come back and have the audacity to ask me if I should be suspicious of Islam. Ludicrous.
Yeah. Do you think they should have had somebody like yourself who has experience from Islamic country that you could have spoken from your experience, right?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why they would never have me on something like that, because they would know I would single-handedly put him through a blender for literally 2 hours. I could do it all day. Like I would literally do it for fun. And that's why, they would never have somebody like me on a debate like that, because, yeah, it would only go one way.
Now, what do you make of Piers Morgan Uncensored, when it comes to Israel and Gaza? Do you think Piers has been fair when he speaks about what's going on in Iran? He brings somebody like Professor Morandi. He doesn't really bring on people like yourself.
Honestly, I'm not going to talk about Piers too much. The only thing I want to say about Piers Morgan is I think he should just stay in his gated community, live his luxurious life, and let the people who come from the struggles, the people who have to face, the reality of modern day problems, speak about the problems. Piers knows nothing about reality. He is completely delusional. That's all I have to say about Piers.
But that platform, when you bring extremely opposing voices, just shouting over each other, do you think that educates people, or is it just entertainment?
I mean, yes and no, because, it can show people's true colors when they start acting emotional and, they start shouting. There's no, there's no civil conversation. Or it can also, it helps waking people up to see the true colors of people. And sometimes not, because not everyone has got the attention span to just watch, two grown-up people scream at each other.
If you had a message to send to people that are in Iran, trapped there under the regime, you can't imagine what life is like. You remember they shut down the internet for all those days. What is your message of hope for them?
My message to the people of Iran, especially to the younger generation like myself, is please, please, please be strong. I know how hard it is. I know how ridiculously hard it is to live under the occupation of the Islamic regime. I experienced it for 12 years, and I can only imagine it's gotten a lot worse. Please keep fighting. Please be strong. You've spent some of the worst days of your life in Iran. The only thing I want for the people of Iran is to also spend some of the best days in a free Iran, where, we are not being oppressed by the Islamic regime. The people in Iran, the younger generation in Iran, are one of the only reasons I do this. They are my strength, they are my hope, and they are a symbol of resilience. And, they are easily the strongest generations in the whole world, easily. And, they will be free one day. And, a message to them from me personally, until my last breath, I will never stop speaking about Iran. I will never stop fighting for Iran until Iran is free.
Kamyar, I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. Really was very much enlightened from this interview. How can people find you, follow you, and be in touch with you, hear more from you?
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. My social media is mainly Instagram and TikTok, and it is Cam with a K, X, Persian. And lastly, can I just give a quick message to the people of Iranian Farsi? بچهای ایران، کسایی که اینا رو میبینید، ازتون میخوام قوی باشید. ازتون میخوام اینو بدونید که ماها که بیرون اینجاییم داریم براتون میجنگیم، صداتونیم و شماها واقعا یکی از قوی ترین مردم دنیا هستید و پیروزی ما خیلی نزدیکه. پاینده ایران جاوید شو. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you again, and hope to speak with you. Free Iran with direct
100%.
flights to Tel Aviv.
From Tel Aviv, 100%.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Take care,
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure.